Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Dear respected viewers, dear respected participants in the course, we welcome you again to the book of Leviticus and the book of Numbers. And when we talk about the book of Leviticus, we are talking about the third book of the 5 books which constitutes the Torah, which is in itself the first part of the Old Testament, consisting of 39 books. Having said this, Dr. Gharama comes to talk about the history of Leviticus from the name, saying that from the very name Leviticus, we deduce that it talks about the family of Levi or Levi, one of the 12 sons of Jacob. We know that Jacob had 12 sons. One of them is Levi. Levi himself had a son named Kohat, and then Kohat had a son named Imran, the father of Moses, Aaron, and Mary or Maryam. So if we summarize it, we can restate it or say it again in this order. So we are talking about Moses, the son of Imran, the son of Kohat, the son of Levi, the son of Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Also, Dr. Gharama comes to emphasizes that the family of Levi, it was chosen from the 12 tribes to be the family of priests. There were many prophets amongst them. The last of them is Jesus, peace be upon him and upon all the prophets. Dr. Gharama also pinpoints a certain event to be of benefit for clarifying things to truth seekers. He is passing a very important and valuable piece of information which will be of great benefit for those who would like to clarify things for truth seekers. This benefit refers to the 2 sons of Aaron. He reminds us of the 2 sons of Aaron, that is Nadab and Abihu. He reminds us also, may Allah bless him and bless his effort, that they were selected, as we said in the past, they were selected by God to accompany Moses, Aaron, and the 70 elders of Israel to go up to Mount Sinai. And yet, to our surprise, and to the surprise of any rational person with a rational mind, to our surprise that we come to read in chapter 10 and under the title Punishment for Nadab and Abihu, we come to know that we are told rather that they took their censers, it is a container where they put the live coal and put their incense. So they took their censers, put fire in them, and added some incense and offered unauthorized. We are told that they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command, the command of the Lord. We were told also that the Lord sent fire which consumed both, and both died before the Lord. Dr. Gharama comes even to remind us that they even claim that even Moses and Aaron themselves, that the Lord, out of anger and wrath, caused Moses, Aaron to die, and did not even allow them to enter the Holy Land. What can one learn from such event, inquires Dr. Gharama. Then he answers, saying that if they chosen people, the Lord would not have had his wrath on them and bear them. Yes, it makes sense, If they were really a chosen people, how could such thing happen to them? To be consumed by fire just like that. And also, when it comes to Moses and Aaron, in Islam, God has praised Moses and Aaron. And it is enough that we are told that Moses is the converser with God to show their status. Dr. Karama comes then turns or moves to talk about another issue, which is really also a very surprising issue. The issue of leprosy, or as stated in the book, they sometimes call it skin rashes, or sometimes they call it skin diseases, referring to leprosy. They, in the book of Leviticus, they talk about skin disease, defiling disease. They describe it to be defiling disease. While it is known, medically speaking, and we learn from Dr. Gharama being a physician, that really its cause is, it is just a kind of deficiency in a certain chemical substance in the skin cells. That's it, scientifically speaking. Yet, they claim that it affects even clothes. And what is even worse, they say that also it affects walls and houses. And that the priest will come to diagnose this disease, and then based upon their diagnosis, they prescribe what can be done. For example, they come even to talk about demolishing the house, which they think is infected, quote unquote, is infected by leprosy. And also not only demolishing the house, but also throwing the debris outside the cities. This is really amazing. Talking about a disease which scientifically, the cause is known scientifically speaking, yet they not only prescribe it and that it affects human being, but also it comes to affect clothing and even houses and so on. To your surprises, emphasizes Dr. Gharama, we have another amazing story, the scapegoat. In Arabic, of course, they call it Azazil, which really means Satan. And then Dr. Gharama comes to remind us that when we see the Holy Bible, especially the translated one, we notice that clearly you have a column in English and a column in Arabic, just in the same page. Yet when they come to talk about the translation, they don't ever utter the word Satan. They just use the word scapegoat, trying to avoid the use of the term Satan, in order to move the accusation of them that they are making this as a kind of sacrifice to Satan, as a kind of offering to Satan. So, going back to the story goes, if we read in the book of Leviticus, that Aaron shall bring the live goat, a goat should be live, he is to lay both hands on its head, the head of the goat, and confess over the head of the goat, all the rebellion of the Israelites and also all their sins, and put it on the goat's head. Then this goat is sent to the wilderness, to the desert, guided by a chosen person. The goat will carry on itself all their sins as a kind of expiation, and so on. Of course, such story, it's really difficult to believe. It shows that they are giving sacrifices, which is something away from the faithful people, to offer anything to other than God. So they are offering this sacrifice to Satan in order for their sins to be forgiven. Then we come to another issue related to reward and punishment. If we read in chapter 26 in Leviticus, under the title Blessings for Obedience, or you can say reward for obedience, Dr. Gharama emphasizes that it lists all those rewards and nothing whatsoever related to paradise. So in the book it talks about certain rewards related to this materialistic life. Reward related to agriculture, fruits, things related to the world. Nothing whatsoever is mentioned about paradise, resurrection, the day of accountability, something in the hereafter. So they list all these rewards and nothing whatsoever related to paradise, nor the day of resurrection, nor about accountability. All are worldly materialist gains. Also, on the other side, under the, if you allow us just to emphasize, allow me just few minutes to read to you exactly in chapter 26 of Leviticus, the rewards that they talk about. Under reward for obedience, we read the following. Do not make idols or set up an image or a sacred stone for yourselves, and do not place a carved stone in your land to bow down before it. I am the Lord your God. Observe my Sabbaths and have reverence for my sanctuary. I am the Lord. If you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my command, I will send you rain in its season, and the ground will yield its crops, and the trees of the field their fruits. Your threshing will continue until grape harvest, and the grape harvest will continue until planting, and you will eat all the food you want and live in a safety in your land. Anyhow, I'll not carry on because, as you notice, it is enough to shed some light that all these promises and these blessings or reward related to their obedience is just related to the world and nothing whatsoever about the hereafter. And likewise, when he talks about the punishment for disobedience. And that is why it is mentioned here that under punishment for disobedience, nothing about hellfire nor the grave. Why? Why is this? As a clarification by Dr. Gharama, he refers us again to this complex of the chosen people. They feel that since they are the chosen people, so no punishment will be waiting for them in the hereafter. They don't even mention it whatsoever because after all, they are a chosen people, so they will not be punished. And that is, we read that this is by reminding us all that this complex of chosen people is preoccupying their mentality to the extent that they would reshape the contents of the chapters to adjust with this concept, the concept of the chosen people. When talking about, for example, when talking about God or Lord, they wouldn't say Lord of the world, but of Israel. Since they are children, the children of and the beloved of God, so they are beyond punishment. So this concept is being emphasized when they relate these things. Nothing whatsoever is mentioned about the hereafter. They just concentrate on this life and became notorious for usury, interest, and for materialistic dealings with others. When we say others, we are referring to the Gentiles. Now, Dr. Gharama moves to talk about the book of Numbers, which is related to census, statistics, and figure. It is, by the way, the fourth book of the Torah. The name Numbers refers to the tribes' numbers. Under the title Census, we read that in the second month of the second year after the Israelites came out of Egypt, the Lord ordered Moses to take a census of the whole Israelite community, 12 clans or 12 tribes if you like, their clans listing every man by name. Now the contradiction. Dr. Gharama refers us to two stories that really contradicts one another. In one, we read that Moses is told, you must not count the tribe of Levi. While later on, and even within just one page, they say, count the Levites by their families and clans. So, to explain more, under contradictions and senses, first we are told under the title Levites exempted, that the Lord had said to Moses, you must not count the tribe of Levi or include them in the census of the other Israelites. Then just one page later, in chapter 3, phrase 14, one reads, the Lord said to Moses, count the Levites by their families and clans. Such contradictions should be marked by a participant. He's reminding us, may Allah bless him, that such contradiction should be taken as a note by the participant in the course in order to clarify to truth seekers that it couldn't be, the word of God, that within just one page something is contradicting the other. So whom to believe? Do we believe the phrase in the first thing, or do we believe what is mentioned just one page later? Distortion the reality of Moses. They even dared to distort the reality, the image of Moses, peace be upon him, himself. The Quran pictures the politeness, the gratefulness of Moses. A witness to this, a very clearly stated Quranic verse, which talks that when Moses was alone under a tree after he helped the two shepherdess in Madian. So we read even when he was lonely, hungry in Madian, what did he say? This is what he said in the Quran. My Lord, indeed I am for whatever good you sent me to me in need. I'll say it again. It shows humbleness, gratefulness. He's hungry, he's lonely, yet he identifies the blessings of God, and that is why he said what he said. He said, my Lord, indeed I am for whatever good you sent down to me in need. How polite.
فسقى لهما ثم تولى إلى الظل فقال رب إني لما أنزلت إلي من خير فقير.
So he watered their flocks for them. Then he went back to the shade and said, My Lord, indeed I am for whatever good you would send down to me in need.
On the other side, while we read in chapter 11, phrase 10, and under the title, Moses complains to the Lord. So you find the contrary. This beautiful image of a grateful prophet, Moses, peace be upon him, who is appreciating the blessings of God, although he was, in a very challenging situation, afraid, hungry, lonely, yet he said what we just read to you. On the other side, this is what we read. Again, I just remind you, it is chapter 11, phrase 10, and under the title, Moses complains to the Lord. They complained that they got fed of eating manna and quail. They are longing for Egyptian fish and the meat, which is false, because after all, they were under slavery. So there is no question of offering of fish nor meat, which is false, because they were under slavery and they just ate of what the land produces. So they expressed their complaints to Moses, and they claimed that Moses addressed the Lord saying. So even they claim that Moses said certain harsh phrases, which is impossible for a godly prophet like Moses to say or to dare and to utter this word addressing God. This is what they say. They claim that Moses said, why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you that you put the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive them? If this is how you are going to treat me, put me to death right now. it is really beyond belief that a very obedient, grateful prophet would say such thing. Especially who is Moses? He is the converser with God, and he's among the prophets of resonance, the 5 prophets of resonance. So it is impossible that he would dare to utter such words. Dr. Gharama then moves to talk about the story of the Cushite wife. When they say Cushite, they are referring to African wife that is south of Egypt. Again, the remaining that Dr. Gharama produces or introduces this story to emphasize this distortion that is just is dominating most of the Torah or the Bible as a whole. Aaron and Mary talked against Moses because of his Cushite wife, saying, so they were not pleased that Moses got married to this Cushite African wife. So they said, listen, there is no big difference between you and us. That is Aaron and Mary talking to Moses. You received the revelation, we received revelation, and you are prophet, we are prophet. So you should have consulted with us, before taking this step, because there isn't big difference between us. We are of equal status. The Lord also spoke through us. So also they said that even the Lord also spoke through us, not only you. The Lord said, but I spoke face to face. So they say that the Lord, told them both, Aaron and Mary, that yes, but Moses is different because I talked to him face to face with Moses. Then he punished them. The Lord punished Mary, so she became leprous. Moses interceded for her, so the Lord said, confine her outside the camp for 7 days. So it was reduced, the punishment was reduced due to Moses' intercession. Then we come to a very strange story, the story of Balaam, son of Beor. It is mentioned in the Quran, and also it is mentioned in the Torah. In the Quran it is mentioned but without the name. And it is mentioned in a very rashful, conceivable way. So it exists in the Quran and also in the book of Numbers, but with distortion. The Quranic version, in the Quran name is also the criterion. That is what distinguishes between right and wrong. Likewise, the Torah. The Torah can be described to be the criterion, of course, before it was distorted or before it was tampered with, because after all, it is the revelation. But after the distortion, it won't be, and this can't be a criterion. So the Quran became the only criterion between truth and false. Based on this, in the Quran, the story of Balaam mentioned without the name. He was a knowledgeable person, yes. He was living by the Euphrates River. Then Dr. Gharama is of the opinion that this knowledge that he gained, maybe he got it from Lot. Of course, he was not contemporary with Lot, but through those who came to take knowledge from Lot or even Abraham, his uncle. And then this knowledge was passed through generation to this knowledgeable person. So he is of the opinion that he gained his knowledge, this remarkable knowledge, from those who learned from Lot and Abraham. Knowledge was really so much attached to this personality. And even willingly, he was not forced, but willingly he wanted it. He detached himself from this knowledge. In what way? By being a prey for the Satan, by listening to his whims and desires. So he was stripped, so to speak. He was detached willingly from piety and obedience. And it's not only him, he's an example. He set an example for many people, or some people that, they are influenced and dominated by their desires. Even they might be knowledgeable, but their desires is, overcomes their piety, and this is what will be the end. They will find themselves detached from the knowledge that God has blessed them or bestowed upon them. Then Dr. Karama reminds us that when the Holy Quran talks about this knowledgeable person, the Quran talks about him in a very clear way. This is what the Quran says about this knowledgeable person. It is in the Surah Al-Araf. We read, "And recite to them, O Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, the news of him to whom we gave knowledge of our signs." So, as Dr. Rama mentioned, there is no names in it, just say the knowledge of him. There's no mentioning of the name. The name is not important because there is a message that we learn from here rather than the story, his name is so and so. It doesn't make any difference. The important thing is to get the message. And he just set an example, it's not a single case. He's, we are learning that many people, might be of the same status. So, "And recite to them, O Muhammad, the news of him to whom we gave knowledge of our signs, but he detached himself from them. So Satan pursued him, and he became of the deviators. And if we had willed, we could have elevated him thereby, but he adhered instead to the earth and followed his own desire. So his example is like that of the dog. If you chase him, he pants. Or if you leave him, he still pants. That is the example of the people who denied our signs." So here it is. It's not just a single case of this knowledgeable. This is the example of the people, all the people, not necessarily him, all the people who denied our signs. So relate the stories that perhaps they will give thought how evil an example is that of the people who denied our signs and used to wrong themselves. Whoever Allah guides, he is the rightly guided. And whoever he sent astray, it is those who are the losers. This is how the Holy Quran pictures the story of this knowledgeable person who just detached himself by disobeying God. Of course, Muslims, interpreters and exegetes state that when Moses brought the Israelites from Sinai, people in Jordan and Palestine sought their help. They asked for their help in order to relieve them from tyrant rulers who were appointed before by Pharaoh, who who was drowned. So those people of Jordan and Palestine, they invoked the help of the Moses and the Israelites to relieve them from those tyrant rulers left by Pharaoh after he was drowned. Now we come to another story, the story of the king Balak of Moab in Jordan, and he's invoking the help from Balaam, son of Beor. Moses and the Israelites moved to them in Jordan when approached Moab, King Balak. So as a response, Moses and the Israelites responded to the request of the Jordanian and the Palestinian to come and relieve them from those tyrant rulers. So they moved to their relief, to relieve them from those tyrant rulers. So that's why you read that Moses and the Israelites moved to them, that is to the people in Jordan and Palestine. In Jordan, when they approached Moab, that is in Jordan, King Balak of those to fight them, and invoked the help of Balaam. So this King Balak decided to fight Moses and the Israelites, And then he invoked the help of this knowledgeable person, Balaam, asking for his advice. Of course, what is expected, since he's knowledgeable, that he will advise him that, listen, those people are righteous, especially the righteous people of Israel. You should not fight them. So instead of advising Balak to co-op with the righteous of the children of Israel who were chosen for their piety and not for their lineage, instead of that, no, Balaam advised Balak to allure, that is so seduce, to allure the young soldiers or the youngsters among the Israeli soldier, especially the young, to allure the young soldiers of Israel by sending women to trade with them in the market. And he succeeded to a certain extent. Some of them they indulged in adultery and so on. Now we talk about the book of Numbers version, the book of Numbers version about this event. It is mentioned that Balaam was a prophet. So having finished talking about the Quranic version, that yes, this person is mentioned without a name, and that he just became and succumbed to his desires and whims and inclination. So all this knowledge did not benefit him. He became a prey for Satan. Now we talk about the book of Numbers version, about the same story. It is mentioned that Balaam was a prophet, so they claim that he was a prophet, receiving revelation, and that his invocations are granted. That is, when he asks something, it is granted. This is what they say. This is their version in the Bible. Elders of Moab went to Balaam, taking with them fee for Balaam divination. This is a big problem. How can a prophet, as they claim he was a prophet, how can a prophet will disobey God by taking money from the people in order to do divination? Divination is forbidden completely to be practiced. So how about to be practiced by so-called prophets? Anyhow, so we had two delegations sent by the king of Moab to talk and with Balaam, and in order to get him to come to Moab and to invoke the curse and to utter the curse upon the Israelite army. So the first delegation, we are told that they came to Balak and they put a curse on the coming out of Egypt. God, revelation told him not to go or not to do. So the story goes as such. This delegation was sent by the king of Moab to Balaam. For what cause or for what reason? In order to ask him to utter a curse upon the army, Moses and the army. So he told them, he welcomed them, and he said, well, I'll wait for the revelation and see what revelation will direct me, what God will direct me. They spent that night, and in the morning he said, well, God came and he said, they claim, of course, that God said, who are those people? This is really something amazing. How can God, who knows the unseen, will ask Balaam, who are your guests who came? Anyhow, but here it should be emphasized. Anyhow, in the morning he said, well, revelation told me not to go. So the king of Moab did not despair. He sent another delegation, but this time with more fees, in order to get Balaam to respond. So the second delegation came, and there were more reward. So he told the same story, revelation. So God said, go with them, but do only what I tell you. So he was granted the permission to go with delegation to Moab, but on one condition, that he should not do anything except until God tells him. And Of course, here he was also told not to utter a curse upon the people of Israel until God permits him. So he started the journey. He saddled his she donkey and went. But God was angry with him and sent angel to stop him. And this is really strange because, we are told that God gave him the permission. Then God is angry. It's really difficult to conceive. Anyhow, we continue with the story that he continued. He took, he saddled his she donkey and went on his way to Jordan. But God was angry and sent an angel to stop him from going. The donkey saw the angel, but Balaam did not see the angel. The donkey, they claim that he saw the angel with a sword, so he went and he ran to the field instead of continuing on the way. Finally, the she donkey lay down under Balaam, and he hit the she donkey. Then they claim that God opened the donkey's mouth, so the donkey spoke, and she talked to Balaam, asking, "Why did you hit me 3 times?" As if we are talking about, children's story or myth. Anyhow, this is what is mentioned. "I see the angel who would kill you." So Balaam apologized to the she donkey and went his way. Then Balaam arrived to the king of Moab, and the king asked him to curse the Israelites. So he said, "I wouldn't do it until you bring 7 bulls, and also you make the sacrifice," and so on. So it didn't work. All this, the king responded to his request, which he made it as a condition that he will not utter the curse on the Israelites until he brings 7 bulls, and also he will make the fire and the burning and the sacrifice and the offering. But all this did not work. Revelation came to Balaam not to curse Moses and his army. Finally, Balaam cursed them. So he disobeyed God. God got angry and punished Balaam that his tongue was hanging over his chest, and the Israelites gained victory. This is a distorted story because God gave just a parable, a comparison. It is parable, that it's not a matter of a dog panting in all his situation. No, it is we call it parable. Parable, that it is a message that not only the God, but even a human being, could pant. In what way? In the panting that he will just make all his, busy his mind is this world, forgetting about the hereafter, just running after this life. So it is kind of parallel, but they didn't get the message. They took it literally rather than figuratively. This is a distorted story because God gave just a parable of a dog. If you drive it away, it pants. If you leave it, it pants. So the person who run after, and here's the emphasis by Dr. Garama, so the person who run after worldly gains, his knowledge does not benefit him whatsoever. Just like, the dog who pants in all his situation. Except those whom Allah guided, and those who came to know the reality of this life, and those who did not become a victim of their inclination and their desires. So he will be panting in all his situations. This distortion and misunderstanding of the parable by the people in the book, they distorted the story, and they missed the point that it is kind of parable, a kind of a message. The distortion and misunderstanding of the parable is the eventual result of depending on memory, which quite often betrays. So this is the important comment we hear from Dr. Garama, that all these kind of distortion and contradiction and so on, just they are the result of those who depend on their memory, because memory quite often betrays the person. So depending on memories which quite often betray the person. With this we conclude, longing to see you, dear viewers and dear participants, in coming episodes and lectures. Until then, we leave you in peace of mind and in the custody of God. Assalamu alaikum.
أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام